Good afternoon, gamers, and welcome to a Saturday matinee episode of Games with Dave. Joining me, sorry, my little script here keeps tipping over on me, and I need it to be able to remember everything. Joining me today, all the way from Spain, is Paco Garcia from GMS Magazine.
Hey,
Uh, Paco has his YouTube channel and website where he has been doing reviews, unboxings, a cooking show, and all kinds of stuff for over 10 years now. And you can check it out. I'll make sure the links are down below in the description when I get off of here. And check out Paco's channel and also his website. And welcome to the show, Paco. I'll
thank
try
you.
not to keep you up too late tonight. So,
That's quite a ride. So don't worry about it. And thank you very much indeed for inviting me. This is I was really looking forward to this. So thank you.
awesome. I have been too. Like, it's been so hard to not drive you crazy through chat and like run ideas by you all week. And
I love that. I absolutely love that, and I love when people chat to me. So because it makes it's a very nice little break from work because I've managed to sneak into my work, Messenger and WhatsApp and a few things. So when people send me, it's this kind of 30 seconds distraction that keeps my mind focused later on when I have to do my daily job. So I love that.
all right. Well, you've opened the vault, so you're in trouble now.
I like that. Oh, I love trouble. Love trouble. Bring it on.
um, so one thing I learned about you this week in doing my research is you actually started playing D&D in one of my favorite settings, Dark Sun.
Yes.
Um,
Well, mm,
well, it
that,
said it was the first setting that you had run games for, actually.
yes, that's correct. I started playing a little bit of Dragonlance and a little bit of Ravenloft, but Dark Sun was the setting that I felt inspired to actually read and become a GM.
Yeah, it's such a fun setting. And what was it that drew it or drew you to it? I mean, for me, it was the depiction of the hardships, the desolation, and the Thrycreen that sucked me in.
Several things. Okay, I'm going to be super honest about this, and just so you know, this is going to be sound completely crazy. Okay, but there are several things that really attracted me about this. I have always been very keen on the environment and very much an environmentalist, and the fact that Dark Sun kind of plays with a fantasy post-apocalyptic world where the environment has gone to hell, literally.
Right.
That was very interesting to me because I thought, man, that could happen to Earth at some point if we keep messing this up. So I love that. Um, love the social justice aspect of it because although it is problematic to have slavery nowadays in a role-playing game, but there was one thing about slavery in Dark Sun, which is universal, and is that everybody considered that to be completely evil and wrong. And it was a this is gonna sound very wrong, okay, but it is a equal opportunity slavery. It was like anybody could be a slave, anybody could be enslaved, and anybody could be a slaver. So it was like, yeah, slavery is bad. Slavers are evil, no matter who you are, no matter who you are enslaving. So screw that. So that aspect of you can fight against this, I loved. And the third thing that attracted me was psionics, because at the time
Yes.
it was a time when I was still experimenting as a young man with new age and witchcraft and wanting to have telepathy, and playing with my friends about this set of cards. I can no longer remember what they are called, and you had to guess what was on that card. So I wanted to be a telepath. So psionics was kind of exciting to me because one day I will be able to do some of these things, like moving things with my mind. And it was like, yeah, eventually it was like, yeah, Paco. I grew up, and I realized that was never going to happen, but I still love Dark Sun.
I don't think either of us have ever truly grown up, though. There's still the part of us that's the perpetual 12-year-old in there that,
But yeah, but I don't try to move things with my mind anymore. At least I
well,
don't spend my time
you got to start trying
concentrating.
again.
Not that.
So, what are some of the other RPG systems? I'd say modern day, really, like where Dark Sun was one of the first for you. coming up to 2024, what are some of your favorite systems now?
Okay, right now, to be perfectly honest, I am absolutely in love with Free League. Year Zero engine is just amazing. I love what you can do with it, how you can adapt it to different settings to do different gaming experiences, even if the mechanics are so similar. And to me, that is massive because I think the system needs to help tell the story and empower the characters in a way that will make the story meaningful. So, for instance, it's not the same to play Forbidden Lands as it is to play Blade Runner, even though you're
Hmm.
throwing dice that do basically the same thing, just give you
Right.
some hits, some successes, and give you some stresses. But the way they do it is so differently. They empower the player to play different styles of stories. And I absolutely love that. I really do. Of course, I am a Cthulhu fan, and I play Call of Cthulhu with my friends all the time as well. And I love it to bits.
Mm.
And recently, I've also been playing Cult, which is really nasty. It's one of those games that's not for everyone. It's a complete needing an X card sort of game because it couldn't be any more politically incorrect. You can do pretty much anything in the game. I am not a massive fan of the system, but the setting itself, I think, is absolutely glorious in how gory and pleasant and thoroughly brutal it can be. So those are my three current loves right now.
It's funny because I have the same feeling for Mork Borg that you
Mhm.
do for Cult. And it's typically it's not something I would have walked into a game store 5 years ago and just gone, oh geez, let's grab this. It was one of those books that I saw that I was just like, huh, that's interesting. I opened it up and I'm like, you can beat somebody with their femur. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm buying this book.
It's
I'm
it's
like,
kind. I've always wanted to do that, so let's do it around the table. Why not? Kind of-
oh, it's too funny. I love Call of Cthulhu too. I've got a whole to my right, which you can't see. I've got a whole shelf full of Free League books. And then off to the side of the whichever I do horrible at pointing behind me. Beside the red light, I've got an entire shelf of my Call of Cthulhu books. So yeah,
I just feel Call of Cthulhu. It was such a staple in my RPG youth when I was starting because I come from a relatively small town, definitely a very small-minded and very small culture town, and I had no idea who Lovecraft was until I learned about Call of Cthulhu, and then I learned about Lovecraft, and it was like, wow, you can actually write this level of, sorry for using this word, crazy, and it feels amazing to play here and to be this scared about something. It was fantastic.
sorry, I hear my cat and I'm just making sure she doesn't jump up on the desk. Oh, you want to come here? I just don't. Oh, she's running away.
Oh, dear, fair enough. Oh, wow.
I just wanted to make sure she doesn't just come flying up on the desk and knock everything over.
Oh, that would be hilarious, though. That would be amazing.
It would be. So, in the intro, I brought up GMS Magazine. What was it that prompted you to start that and start doing reviews and unboxings?
Two things. One, I just wanted to write things I was playing or my opinions. I saw other people doing blogging and writing, and I was thinking, I want to do that. I've always liked writing, which is something really weird for somebody who's heavily dyslexic like myself. But I've always liked writing, so I thought, okay, let's try this. Because I had gone to some forums, and I don't know what forums are like today because I barely visit any. But when I started in 2009, they were a hellscape. They
Oh, they
were
still are.
absolutely horrible, horrible places. So I didn't feel comfortable submitting work to basically forums. And WordPress was happening at the time, Blogger was happening at the time. And I thought, I'm going to do this. I don't know if it's how long it's going to be. I didn't even know what I wanted to do with it. I wanted to have a website called GMS Magazine, but that was already taken. So I took the A and the E out and started GMS, hoping that everybody would understand that GMS stands for games, but also thinking maybe it would be a GM's magazine. I didn't know. So I just started. And the second reason is that I also thought, and this is something that's waned, I waned very quickly. I also saw an awful lot of people saying, "Oh, I've got this game for free. I've got this game for free." I thought, "Shit, I want games for free as well." So I'm going to do this and see if I can get games for free also. Why not? And yeah, it doesn't work like that. It
Nope.
really doesn't work like that for long.
No. I wish I could have like the UPS truck pull up and just be like, "Oh, these people sent you games." I'd be like, "Yes," but it doesn't work that way, like you said.
Well, at the beginning it did start working out that way, but then something happened, and is that I felt this responsibility to do something with the games that people were sending me. It wasn't as if I could just put them on the shelf and forget about them. I had to play them, I had to read them, I had to do something with them. And that showed up with a load of work that had to happen. And
Mhm.
eventually it was like, I think I better stop asking people to send me games because I really can't deal with this level of having to work every day and then having to spend weekends playing and talking about these games. So now I don't want as many games, even though people still send games and I am ever so grateful and I work very hard for that. But whereas I used to receive a lot of games in the past, now I may be getting a couple of them a month, if that, and that's plenty. Thank you.
That's still cool though. It's always great when you get that surprise package that you like. I've gotten some that I didn't know were coming that'll be like, "Thanks for a great interview." And I'm like, it just warms my heart because it's like, wow, they really had a good time talking with me or something like that.
It is wonderful when it happens, definitely.
So which do you prefer? I'd say, which do you derive more joy from, doing the reviews or the unboxings? What is it that really, or can't you really pick from the two?
I cannot. I really cannot because the unboxings is this quick fix. It's like having a shot that's going to give you a quick rush because I generally don't know what's inside those books or inside those boxes when I open them. I try not to look. So I can be genuinely surprised or genuinely disappointed and give it a genuine opinion about what I see. So I don't know, but then the review hopefully is what's going to entice people to take a look at something, or maybe entice people not to, is what's going to have a different kind of impact. And I can be myself, that I can be me when I do a review. So there are two different experiences, and if I had to choose which one to do for the rest of my life, it would be a very, very tough decision for me to do.
Yeah, I get what you mean with that dopamine hit
Yeah,
that when you
it's
open a box. I did my technical first unboxing last weekend, and I got the Minds of Moria book and the cloth map from Free League. And I'm trying to hold my phone and open the box at the same time, and I still had to it was comical to watch after. I'm just laughing so hard. And I'm like, I've still got to put this up because I did it. And I'm like, it'll be a great like point to look back at in another year, like I do with these interviews,
Mhm.
and see how uncomfortable I was when I did my first interview and how bad my first unboxing was, to how easy, well, I wouldn't say easy, but how much easier this has gotten and how much better they've gotten. I love
Well,
that gauge.
I love that too. And by the way, I also got that book like the day before yesterday. They also sent me that
Nice.
book, but it's still shrink wrapped. So I have no idea what the book is. And I'm so looking forward to next weekend when I go to the studio and unwrap it and take a look at it inside. That's the other thing. The reason I like unboxes is this sense of trepidation before I actually look. It's like having this Christmas present under the tree
Yes.
2 days, and you don't know what's inside. It's like, I want to look, I want to look. It's I love it. I really love that feeling.
It's funny because I do the same thing. I just haven't gotten into doing reviews. If I'm not going to have time to look through a book, I won't take the plastic off it usually until I know I'm going to have time. And my fiance, she'll be like, I can't believe you haven't opened that book yet. I'm like, oh, it's killing me to not open it. Trust me. And I'm like, don't push me to open it.
It can be hard at times, especially when it's something from a company that you love and that you know they're going to do something amazing.
Yeah.
It really is very tough.
Did you get the cloth map as well?
No, they've sent me 4 books, but not the
Oh,
cloth
wow.
map. Yeah,
The map is gorgeous. Well, you'll have to see if you can get one because I opened it up and it's just, oh,
that's the one thing. Living in a country where I am, getting imports is very hard and quite expensive. There are only a few stores online that will get you imports and not all of it. So sometimes I need to ask my husband to buy whatever I want and him to buy me in the UK and then bring it because otherwise in Spain, English books, they're not the norm. We tend to translate everything, which is like, not yet.
interesting. Yeah, because I don't even think I could send dice to you over there without it costing you a small fortune because it's considered gambling, correct?
No, not necessarily. No. You could send dice. It really depends on what the value and how it is declared.
Ah,
The problem is that, which is why I don't back Kickstarters that often anymore, is that when goods come into Spain, if they have any value attached to them, even if it's just $1, I bought the Dragonlance set, the box with the board game and everything, and it comes with
oh,
screen. And screen was defective. It was stuck upside down. So if
hmm,
you had the dragon overlooking the people the right way up, everything else was upside down.
oh
Otherwise, the
no.
dragon was upside down. So I contacted Wizards of the Coast. They were very good. I opened the ticket and they sent me a replacement. No questions asked. They were great about that. But there was a €1, $1 value attached to the whole thing. So I had to pay 17 cents of VAT, no, 21 cents of VAT plus €5 for handling, the handling fee from the post office. So something that was completely free for me, I paid absolutely nothing and had no value whatsoever, cost me €5 and 21 cents. So it depends on how you send it. It is complicated.
Interesting. Yeah, because I'm actually looking at getting into doing international shipping. And it's funny you brought that up because one of the things that I want to make sure I do, say I were to send you something, that you're not incurring any fee when you get it. I would rather eat that $5 on my end so that you can just get your books and have them.
I think the easiest way to do that is to find a distributor here that can help you handle that. So you can ship a bulk stuff, whatever it is, books or anything at all. Or if it is books, even finding a printer here in Europe that could do that. There are plenty of them in Lithuania
Hmm,
or Poland that can handle that easily enough, and the quality is just the same. I know it's been a concern in the past about having different printing quality if you print something in the US or in China and then you print something in Europe and Europeans getting something different. I don't think that is an issue anymore. And to be honest, I'd rather get something different than having to pay, $40
yeah.
just for the privilege.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. That kind of sucks the joy out of it initially if you're like, oh, here's €40. Yeah.
Well, I remember when I backed, I think it was Blue Rose, and I know Chris and Nicole, and I absolutely love them to bits. And Steve Kenson is one of my favorite people in the world. And when I got the book, there was a charge of €40, and
Wow.
it was like, okay, so that book's cost me $90.
Wow.
And it was like, holy cow. So I put something in Facebook, and Chris said, we don't have the control over what happens there. So I'm not blaming anyone. This is not blame at all, but it is something that people need to keep in mind for international customers, because we are not guilty either, but we are being hit by that. And unfortunately, the result is that we need to be very careful with what we back. So I don't back anything that it's going to risk me paying 21% on the price of whatever I paid, plus the shipping. This is just too
Yeah,
much.
that's crazy.
It is.
That is just crazy. Um, so one thing I've noticed about you is your kindness and how open you are to giving advice to people. And one of the things I want to ask you, where I mentioned I want to get into doing unboxings, this is a little bit for me and a little for anyone that might watch it in the future. What kind of advice would you give to any aspiring YouTuber out there that wants to get into doing reviews and unboxings, more in regards of how to prepare for one and how to approach it?
Okay, there are several bits I would say. Firstly, do it for yourself. Don't do it because you want to get big in YouTube. Don't do it because you want to make a living in YouTube. And don't do it because you want to be liked in YouTube. Do it because you enjoy doing the unboxing. I do the unboxing because I enjoy the feeling of opening things up and finding out and discovering it. And I want to share that because I think sharing happiness is a good thing.
Yes.
So that's the reason I do it. So think about why, the real reason why you want to do it. Sit on it for a bit, and then decide is that if that reason is going to sustain you in the long run to do it. And if that reason is ethical enough to want to do it. Because the reason I had to want to get free games, it was not ethical at the time. It was
Right.
just isn't. And I went off it, and I understand what my mistake was, and I've tried to make the best to make up for every single game that I received and every company that was kind to me. So the main advice is do it because you love it, do it because you like it, not because anybody else might love it or might like it, because that may never happen. But that is not going to be what will determine the worth of your work or of you as a content creator.
I think you're absolutely right, because I took about 6 months off from doing these interviews because I'm like, why am I doing these? And then I realized I got really depressed, and I'm like, why am I so depressed? My life is great. And then I'm like, what is missing? And I'm like, oh, it's the interviews. I miss talking to all these awesome people and getting to share our stories about gaming and this and that. And it's the craziest thing. Like, I love doing this. And
It's a wonderful thing. It really is a wonderful thing. And the world of role playing games is, let's face it, it's full of absolutely wonderful people.
it really is. So the next thing I would kind of like to dig into is something that I feel is both necessary for me to talk about, while I also feel slightly disqualified or unqualified to speak on. And it's the area of inclusion in games. As a father to a trans child, as we talked about before we went on the air, and I'm also the product of a two-father home. So I feel like it's something that's very important, is inclusion. And how do you feel RPGs are doing in this matter, and where do you think they still need to go?
I think we have seen very positive advances over the last few years, especially the last 5, 6 years, is when we have seen more audacious um, attempts to bring inclusion into pretty much anything and everything. It is true that there have been some companies that have been doing that without mentioning it for a very long time. Paizo and Chaosium are
Yes.
two such people. Evil Hat Games For Hicks Company,
Yep.
has been one of those people who've been doing that all the time, which is absolutely wonderful, really, really wonderful. But over the last few years, we've seen how people are getting more and more vocal about it, and there are more and more games. I think what games are doing very well nowadays is try to understand the different realities of the people who actually play them. And what they're trying to do, and I think this is crucial, is to narrow the gap between the personal experience of the human being who's playing and the character they are playing. So, to give you an example, it is very often that you cannot associate your experience as a person with a discapacity, for instance, somebody who needs a wheelchair. It's very difficult to bring that experience into the role playing games because it is very hard, and it makes it even harder to have a wheelchair in a role playing game. Now, since this absolutely wonderful combat wheelchair was invented,
Yes.
people can bring that experience. They can be a little bit of themselves within the game. They don't need to be forced to dissociate their real life experience to their gaming experience, because their real life experience might be important enough that they want to bring it here. They are not forced to do that anymore. So I think those attempts to bring that experience close, to give that agency to the players, to be themselves with everything that they have in their lives without it being a problem. I think that's wonderful. And when I say without it being a problem, is for instance when we used to have in cyberpunk games, Shadowrun, if you became a cyborg with prosthetics, that
Yep.
would take away your humanity. So people who've lost legs or arms and they have prosthetics and say, well, have I lost my humanity because my hand is not my biological hand? I know that's not the case. You're still just as human, you're still just as valid, you're still just as perfect, but you just have a different hand, and that's fine.
Right.
So to do that, the fact that they're bringing that gap closer, I think is absolutely wonderful. And as to what I think needs to happen is policing the audience a lot better. Bullying, especially online, still happens.
Oh,
Harassment online still happens. And I don't see enough being done by companies to shut down that kind of rhetoric and those people. I don't see enough companies saying, we don't want to be associated with you, big YouTube channel, because you are being toxic. So we don't want you to talk about Cthulhu, or we don't want you to talk about Lara Croft, or we don't want you to talk about Star Wars because you are being a horrible human being. We
I
don't
would love
see
to
enough
see
of
that.
that.
I
And
would
I
love to
think
see
that
more.
happen. I
Yeah.
would love to see even content creators, who do live sessions, actual plays, telling people you are not allowed to discriminate in our comments. We don't make this content for you. We are making this content for these people. But we don't see that often enough because they need the viewership.
Well, let me tell you, my friend, when I get into doing live plays, I'm probably going to go from a room of 100 people to about 50 real quick at times because I can't stand, I got bullied so much as a kid. And the day that I let someone bully someone else is, yeah, not happening. It's
It's exactly, and it shouldn't. But the thing is, what you do needs to happen at every scale.
yep.
I think every grain of sand counts.
Yes.
you know and if you are a small YouTuber with maybe an audience of 5 people, you should still do it. But if you are on a YouTube channel with hundreds of thousands of viewership, the responsibility is even bigger for you to do that,
Yes.
because you're going to have a much bigger impact. And that is where we need to go. And I understand it's not easy, and I don't judge people too harshly for not doing it, because I get that their livelihoods depend on that. But we need to head in that direction. We cannot be tolerant of intolerance.
I couldn't agree more. Um, so while we're on the subject, is it just me, or are some of the writers more, I'd say, akin to me, the straight white male? Um, I feel like their meaning is wonderfully, or the intent is great, but they come off very ham fisted with the way they try to introduce the inclusion, and because they don't quite get it. You know what I mean? It's
Mhm.
like, which is why I said in the beginning of my question, I almost don't feel qualified to talk about it, because yes, I have experienced it with having my son and growing up in a home with two dads, but it's not real. It's, you know what I'm trying to say? And it's like,
I
for
do.
me to try or write about it would be weird, because I feel I would do it a disservice.
Okay, I have mixed feelings about that. Firstly, I think you would be perfectly qualified to talk about what it is like to be in a two-dad environment, because you've been there, you know what it is
Yeah.
like, and you have your experience. So I think it would be perfectly valid for you to talk about your experience. I don't think it would be valid for you to talk about anybody else's experience, because they have a different reality, and that's the way it goes. But I think you're perfectly qualified to talk about your experience, your feelings, what was going on, and what was good, what was bad, etc. That's your experience, and that's okay. I think it's your experience as a father to talk about growing up with a trans child. It's perfectly valid. And I think people need to understand that it is perfectly valid to try to reflect those realities in the best possible way, as well as it is valid to receive criticism about it. And sometimes criticism is hard to get, because criticism sometimes is very hard handed. That's just it. But
Yeah.
the fact that more and more people are trying to include it, even if it is in a clumsy way, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that, as long as they are ready to then accept and have a dialogue if somebody tells them you've made a mistake.
Gotcha. And yeah, I am overly sensitive to my privilege, I guess is the way to say it, because I have a business I'm trying to start doing consulting for e-commerce. And my nickname at my old job was Amazon Dave, because I ran the Amazon channel. I ran the Amazon sales channel, I should say. And that's what I was going to call my company. So I reached out to a bunch of my South American friends and game designers. And I'm like, do you think this would be perceived as offensive by any potential client? And they all kind of giggled at me. They're like, dude, you're worrying a little too much this time. And they're like, no, that's an awesome name. Go with it.
But I think it's okay, having that level of awareness and precaution is a good thing, because you
Yeah.
chose a good name. You could have chosen the wrong name. So asking, what's the harm in it? The harm might be that you need to think of a different name. So what? Think of a
Right.
different name. It doesn't matter. But the harm that could happen if you choose a different, the wrong name and run with it, it's just not worth it. Just talking to
No.
people is perfect. It's good.
Yeah. And that was kind of my thing. Is like, I don't want, like we were saying earlier before we went live, if you reach that one person, you've done great. But on the same flip side of the coin, if you offend even that one person and you break their heart or make them feel bad or inadequate or whatever, it's the opposite reaction of
Correct.
equal strength. And it's so I'm always very, 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 very cautious with anything that I do like that. And I thought it was kind of cute that they laughed at me and they're like, no, dude, go with the
You're
name.
okay. Yeah. But you see, but now you're safe. Now you know you can do it, and that's going to be absolutely fine. So yeah, that's a
Right.
good result.
So Yeah, I'm all for it, and I love it when I'm actually pleasantly surprised by companies that will work on the inclusion. That you'll look at a book and the preconceived notion of like this looks like it's a book filled with evil characters, but there's inclusion in it. So
Well,
I love
evil
it when
takes
that
all
happens.
shapes.
Yeah. So, oh, this is the part that I warned you about at the beginning because I
Okay.
am a very open person about myself and open about my life and my experiences for what we had talked about before going on air, just in hopes of someday reaching that one person that might hear that one little thing that I said that helps them put that foot in front, one foot in front of the other and keep going. And with your career, are you cool with me bringing up what you do for work? Of being
Absolutely.
okay,
Yeah.
of you being a psychotherapist. First, can you explain? Well, not explain. I guess more and more studies, I guess would be the way to say it, are being done of the viability of using role playing games and board games as a form of therapy.
Mhm.
And I, for one, can say, screw the studies. It is an absolutely valid form of therapy.
Mhm.
And the reason I say this is because I had a severe nervous breakdown in 2018. And it was bad. It was really, really, really dark. And it changed me with a profundity that I'm still learning from 6 years later. Um, I can easily say if it weren't for gaming and my friends that brought me back into it, I myself would have brought my story to an end. I came
Mm.
very close. But gaming and those friends that were like, dude, you got to come play with us. Come play. I sound like the twins from The Shining now. Come play with us. But what are your thoughts on the efficacy of gaming as a form of therapy? That was a
Okay.
very long-winded question.
No, no, but it's a very fair question. Now, I would like to make a clarification though. My day job is as an instructional designer. I design
Oh,
courses for a cybersecurity firm, but I am a trained psychotherapy in for addictions, relationships, and perpetrators of domestic abuse. Even though
gotcha.
right now I don't practice, that's something I used to do as charity work when I was living in the UK. So, um, regarding RPGs as therapy, the short answer is yeah. In fact, role play as therapy was invented decades before role playing games were invented. In fact, I think it was in the 1920s or even sooner than that that
Wow.
somebody came up with role play as a means to try and bring catharsis to the session.
Hmm.
So, yes, is the short answer. However, the difficulty comes because therapy comes with very, very many variables. Because every human is a different human being and they come with different reality. They may have different needs that maybe even they don't know about. So it's a tough one. So when you're doing RPG as a therapy, at what level are we doing the therapy? Is it the inclusion in a social circle, the therapeutic frame that we're using? Is it the translation of or extrapolation or projection of a problem into a character and see how they're going to resolve it? Something similar to what we see with children and sock puppets. Is that what's going to be the case? Is it going to be a specific situation that people need to deal with in the best way? And if that's the case, then what are going to be the safety measures around there, around that situation, to make sure that the person going through the therapy gets all the support they need? And if that doesn't work, then who's going to be the therapist that's going to take on those things? It becomes complex, it becomes muddled. And after that, then we need to see, how is this going to be measured, the efficiency? How are we going to portray either the benefits or the not benefits of doing
Right.
this. Because as therapy, there is one thing that we also need to consider: not every therapy is effective for everyone.
Right.
So what happens if it isn't? There is actually an organization in the UK called Games Therapy, and they do wonderful work because they are trying to kind of catalog, make gaming a little bit more in a more clinical way to figure out how it plays with people. There was when I was practicing psychotherapist, and I was specializing in relationships. You can have two different couples with exactly the same problem, infidelity. He'd found another woman at work, he'd found another woman at work, and yet the same questions asked to the same couple would render completely different results, because there are too many variables around as to where did they
Right.
come from, how did it happen, how much of the future they have invested in each other, what was the family situation. There are an awful lot. So that begs the next question, which is, how do you train somebody to be a game therapist? Because I don't know if there are any specific courses that will teach people how to be a therapist through games. And if you try to be a therapist through games, what's going to be the deontological code surrounding you that will make sure that you are doing it in an ethical manner?
Right. That makes
So
sense.
it is a very complicated answer to do, because although the short answer is yeah, the long answer is yeah, but there are many
Right.
buts that need to be, filled up.
Yeah, it's funny that you brought up the safety measures because when I got back into gaming, everything was online because of COVID. And I lost my brother in 2003. So we were playing in this game, and I have to preface this with that. And I was playing a tabaxi, and one of my best friends was playing a tabaxi that was my brother, and he died in the game.
Oh god.
I lost it at like online, and whew, yeah, the poor GM that day, he's like, what have I done? And I'm like, you haven't done anything. And I'm like, I wasn't expecting that, just like I wasn't in 2003. And I'm like, that just hit home.
It is a very tough one when something like that happens, and I am so sorry for your loss. I'm so sorry that you had to
Thank you.
go through that. But it is a very, very tough one, and not everybody is prepared for it. It's very difficult. It is very
I
difficult. So
was not
that's,
ready for it. And
what do you do then if you don't have the training or the therapeutical mind to go through that and sustain and support the person? It's really hard.
oh, it was. I felt worse for the game master because he just he felt like he had done something, and I kept reassuring him. I'm like, "No, no, no, you're fine." And he's like, "Are you sure?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And the worst part is we were fighting. We were playing 5e, and somehow he had come up with this monstrosity mishmash of Thomas the Tank Engine and a demon. So in the game, my brother was basically killed by Thomas the Tank Engine, and which I think I found equally as traumatizing as
Yes.
reliving the trauma of losing my brother.
Gosh, what a situation! My goodness.
I just happened to dodge, and I had one hit point left, or else we both would have died in this battle. And I dodged and got he missed, and he missed on his next turn, and then I crit on my last turn. And he goes, "Are you kidding me?" And I'm like, "Nope." And I rolled my damage, and I killed Thomas with by one hit point.
Well, that is epic, dude. That is absolutely epic.
And then it's like it was so great because in the game, while I'm crying and these poor people are like, "What's going on?" I'm like, "That's what you get for fucking with my brother."
Hello, catharsis.
Yeah. And ooh, yeah, it was a rough one, but looking back on it, I obviously can still smile and laugh about it because there was so much catharsis to it because I never really dealt with losing my brother, and I buried it for years, and it all came out that day.
And now it's there in a different manner, healthier for you.
Yeah, and it's like I had my friend that played my brother that day, it's like I've been able to realize since then, my brother and I would probably be doing this together if he were still here.
Mm.
But in a way we are, because I'm doing this because of him.
That's
So,
that's amazing to have to think that you have you're doing it as and your brother. What you do is your brother's legacy.
yeah.
That is beautiful. That is so beautiful.
It hits hard because I'm surprised I'm not bawling my eyes out right now, which I guess is a testament to the fact that I finally dealt with it,
Yeah.
but everything we had ever talked about doing, I'm now doing. I'm trying to write. I'm doing this. And he was always like, "Oh, we should make this, we should make that." And I would be, "Yeah, we got the rest of our lives to do it." And little did I know we didn't. But now, like, I missed 3.0, 3.5, and most of 4th edition just because I shut gaming off. I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this without my brother. And but now I've got so many new brothers that I've
Mm.
made through this are people like you and my friend Brian Shutter and all them that I can reach out to, and my buddy Chief that I can reach out to every day whenever I'm having a problem. They're like, "Dude, you okay?" Yeah, thanks. That's all I needed to hear.
I think your brother would be very, very proud of you.
I do too. So, whew, yeah, I think he would. I think he would be quite proud of the steps I have taken because, man, when I was ignoring gaming, it was not a healthy life that I was
No, I
living.
bet it wasn't.
I just took the stick on the airplane, so to speak, and aimed it at the ground. And
And now you have the
I'm
rest of your
glad
life to look forward to playing
yeah,
games.
yeah. And there hit the day when my son was born that I pulled back on that stick and just like the belly of the plane scraped on the ground. And yeah, here I am still,
Good.
thankfully.
Yeah, good. Let's may you
So
continue forever.
I hope so. I tell everybody I'm gonna with modern medicine and cybernetics, I'm gonna live to 140 years old.
That would
So
be amazing. How can you imagine that? What's going to be going on in 100 years? That'd be incredible.
yeah,
My dog is trying to kill somebody. I apologize for the sound.
that's quite all right. I'm surprised my cat's not meowing in the background. Is it a Jack Russell that I think I saw on the back
It's
of
it's
the?
it's a mix Jack Russell and a hunting dog, which is about this big. But we don't know because it's adopted, and somebody found him when he was a month old inside the plastic bag inside the rubbish container. Somebody
Oh,
literally threw him away. So I rescued him.
see, I was a kid that always brought pets home. And I had like the island of misfit toys of cats.
I was never allowed to do that, unfortunately. Otherwise, I would have been. But I did have tarantulas and snakes and all sorts of weird animals that I love.
Oh, so I've only got this one last thing, and then we can keep on talking if you want, or if you got to go. I'm
Sure.
not sure, but I do want to try to end it on a brighter tone than what we just went through with the therapy and my brother and all that. What dish that you cooked for Dice and Slice would you recommend to anyone out there that? And then what 3 RPG systems would you recommend to anyone out there?
Okay, things to cook. I'm going to give you two choices: one for vegetarians and one for non-vegetarians,
Okay.
because I like to cater for vegans and vegetarians whenever I can. So for vegetarians, you have to try gazpacho. Okay, this is non-negotiable. That's it. You have to try gazpacho because it's just like a juice made of vegetables, mainly tomato and cucumber, and a little bit of onion, and a little bit of vinegar, and some salt. and it is incredibly healthy. It's eaten in 5 minutes. In a hot day, it will revitalize you beyond measure. And once you understand how it plays, you can mix it with mango or with apples or with strawberries and make some absolutely wonderful, wonderful combinations. And I grew up on a diet of that thing. So
Sounds
trust me,
delicious.
gazpacho is incredible. And if you are a meat eater, one of my favorite things to cook for my friends and for myself very, very often is a roast leg of lamb with anchovies, rosemary, and garlic,
Hmm.
which I know sounds weird,
Hmm.
but believe me, lamb and anchovies are a made for each other. This is just like the food of the gods. It's
I'm
amazing.
writing this one down because I've got to go back and watch the video again. So,
You will tell me how amazing it is, and it's so I love easy to cook food. I don't do very complicated stuff because my life is complicated enough. My recipes don't need to be. But that you can get it ready in about 15 minutes. It
wow.
will go in the oven for however long it takes you to cook the vegetables, and then you will have a feast in front of you. It's unbelievable.
I can kind of see it because of the saltiness of the anchovies kind of bleeding into the lamb. And then the
Yeah.
rosemary would definitely offset it a little bit. So
It Trust me, it is incredible.
I'm gonna have to try it. So I'm not my 14-year-old, she's a picky eater. She will not touch it. I can guarantee you that.
Okay.
But I'm not scared of anything. So I will give it a whirl.
You will thank me later. Believe me, you will thank me later.
And I did ask you what three RPGs you'd recommend, but we already kind of touched on that a little bit.
Well,
And
okay, but that really depends. I mean, one thing is if you ask me what system, and the other thing is you ask me what RPGs.
yeah, true.
Okay, so let's go with the RPGs. Um, I am a strong emotions junkie when it's about RPGs. I like RPGs that make me feel strongly, either as a GM or as a player. So, with that in mind, there is an RPG that I always recommend, and you will only want to play it once in your life.
Mm,
It's an RPG designed by my friend Seng Fung Lim, and it's called The Ties That Bind.
ooh,
Um, it's an RPG that comes in a anthology of games, and it is a very tough game to play because the GM is going to be against the players. The players are going to be a family of disenfranchised immigrants trying to enter the United States, and the GM is going to be an ICE officer
oh,
who is going to try to break that family to have a reason to send them back.
oof.
Um,
That
it has
sounds gut wrenching.
it is. We lasted 1 hour, and after 1 hour, we had to stop. We really had to stop.
Wow. Yeah, I'm not
So
surprised.
it's one of the most intense empathy-inducing exercises I have ever done in my life, and it's one of the most beautifully and incredibly well-designed games I have ever seen because it really hit the nails on the head all the time. It's amazing, but you will only want to play once.
Yeah, I can see why you would say that because it's just the void that would create inside you while you're playing it, despite the fact it's just a game. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah,
but it's it
it's
it touch
ugh.
it touch close. It touches very, very close. Um, the second game that I would recommend is Blade Runner. We've been playing Blade Runner for a bit now, and we are now playing Case File 2, Fiery Angels, which I did the review recently. And again, I'm with the GM there, um, so I'm behind the screen, telling people what's going on. And these adventures have been so beautifully designed that people have to make very tough decisions because of what they are. And one of the things I was worried about when the Blade Runner game came out is that in the film, especially the first one, the Blade Runner is basically an oppressor. It's a cop trying to catch all the people who've been put in a situation that does not belong to them, that they didn't ask for, and
Right.
end them because humanity thinks that they are not fit for purpose. And it is, and when that game came out, I thought, I really don't think I want to play that kind of character. But they have turned it around so beautifully, so well, but you are still a replicant and you feel slightly differently than a human would. And you have to play with human players' characters as well. So those little conflicts, those humans have to, shit, this is my colleague, and this is the situation they're in. The manual says that I should report them to the police, and take them in. But this is my friend. And they are seeing these things happening to people like them.
And you like to play the intense games.
I do. I really do. I like that because, going back to that little bit of therapy thing, I think that if we can put ourselves in that kind of situation, I can take that feeling out of the game and bring it into real life.
Yep.
And that is important. To me, that is very important. As a young man who explored his sexuality through role-playing games, that is very, very important. And the third game, which I just cannot love it enough, is Weissen.
Yeah.
Masterpiece. Absolute and utter masterpiece. And there are only two little things that I take out of that game. One is that they divide the number of points of attributes and abilities depending on how old your character is, and I hate that. This idea that if you're older, you're physically weaker but wiser, and if you're younger, you're physically stronger but more stupid.
They did that with Forbidden Lands as well, didn't they?
They tend to do that in pretty much every game. And it's the only thing I take out immediately. And it's like, I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in the game trying to dictate what kind of character I want to make. If I want to make a foolish old man who is so strong because everything they've done in their lives is basically cut trees with their bare hands, I want to be able to play that. Thank you very much. I don't need to be a wise sage. I want to play
everybody's Obi-Wan Kenobi when they...
Exactly. And the other thing I take out of the game is that they use self-harm as a means to ground and bring and get rid of stress points, self-flagellation. Sorry, no. I know the reasons why they have included it, but I am in no way, shape, or form ever going to pretend that self-harm is in any way, shape, or form beneficial for your mental health.
No, I would not either. So
no, that is taken out of the game. But apart from those two little things, it's perfection. That game is perfection. It was nearly a Call of Cthulhu killer for me.
Wow.
That is how good that game is for me. Love it so much.
Wow. I can't believe you, as much as I could tell you love Call of Cthulhu, that you said that was almost a Call of Cthulhu killer for you.
Yeah, only because after I played it a few adventures, sorry, I realized that there are two different gaming experiences. But otherwise, it would have killed Cthulhu for me. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I've got to find more people to play Weissen with me because I've got the books. And I just don't have the group to play with.
Believe me, it's a wonderful, wonderful setting. It really is.
Well, Paco, my friend, that was all I had. The one thing I would like to do here at the end, even though I'm going to have the links down below, we'll try, is have you tell folks where they can find you and where they can learn more about your reviews and all that. And rather than me being the one to tell them.
Well, I'm a Facebook junkie. I do go onto Facebook. I'm not doing it at the moment as much as I used to because work has been completely, absolutely mental. And it's taking me away from social networks. In fact, I don't think I've touched my Twitter, my Blue Sky, or my Threads account other than to publish automatic tweets and messages. And my Instagram account is completely like, I don't care anymore. But you can find me in Facebook. You can email me at podcast@gmsmagazine.com, and I will try to answer as much as I possibly can. Or send me a message in Twitter. Sometimes will send me I will take a look at it as often as I can also. But the easiest way to find me is gmsmagazine.com, soplayweall.org. Those are the two websites. Otherwise, TikTok and Facebook, I'm there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. You have been an absolute pleasure to talk to.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. This has been absolutely wonderful, and I would love to do it again if you have me.
Absolutely. I've got some ideas actually that I'll pitch to you after we go off the air because my brain's always going. So, but folks, if you enjoyed this episode, like listening to us talk, give it a like. Maybe think about subscribing to the channel. Other than that, we will see you next time. Have a great day.